And welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham and such. Alright, so I do have a video to play and talk about, but yeah, I'm compelled to do a little bit of social commentary, political crap. It's just probably no point, but it just irritates me that the news is just as dumb as everything else. It's not the news. It doesn't say anything in the right context, or nothing's balanced or reasonable. And so, somebody should point out the obvious. Anyway, what's obvious to me. So I'm going to dump on Trump. Because what he this week, well, the last week and a half, was just insipid. I mean, you're just saying it's amazing that this moron is running the country. So I totally understand, okay, why it happened, in the sense that the Democrats started loving criminals. I mean, just couldn't do anything more than coddle them any way possible for I don't know what fucking reason. And the open borders thing is just retarded. We can't we can't deal with our own social problems. Importing them is really dumb. And if you're going to do this idea of fixing the world or curing the world's problems, we have to cure it where they exist. You can't have a smallpox engine and then say, I'm fighting smallpox by every time they invade me, I'll spend $1 trillion to try to reform the smallpox and make it into something better. That's really dumb. So it's really against the whole idea of prevention. Okay, so I don't like the Democrats because they're not preventers anymore. They're facilitators and feeders of social blight. So don't get me wrong. I understand why morons voted for Trump. I don't know how they did it. I don't know. There's not a clothespin, strong enough to, get me to think that could even be a viable possibility. They'd have to run something. I mean, a dog, a frog. I mean, run anything with the, Republican agenda of closing borders and punishing criminals. Fine. And then accepting all the other crap that comes with it. All this fucking, let's let the capitalist creepoids control the world. Disgusting. Okay, but anyway. But this whole, I just couldn't, you just say there was never any way you could have predicted that a president of the United States would get up and talk about how, well, we'll just deport the Palestinians, we'll just send them to another country to live in a refugee camp, and we'll develop the land, and of course just give it to Israel. And again, I'm not making a commentary against Israel. It exists. I don't think it was very smart to create a racial, ideological state. Okay, because that's just doing the same thing. Should we have an Aryan state also? Should we have one for every single race? We'll have a little preserve where we can keep them all clean and natural, and unpolluted. It is exactly what they should be saying was the problem with the Nazis in the first place, was the racism, the focus on this idea of a master race. And then they're basically saying, no, well, we sort of believe we are the master race. And so it's fine. They created it, and they kicked the Palestinians. They just literally did. They kicked them out of the country. They said, here, you used to live here. Well, too bad, we're taking it. And that's why there were Palestinians in the first place, is because we deported them. All right? It's just a fact. And yeah, we paid some of them 50 cents for their, their house. But I mean, the whole point is we drove them off their land and said, well, you can only stay here if you become an Israeli, a Jew, somehow. It's bullshit. It's a religious state. Okay, so really bad idea. I don't know why America was for religious states when they have a constitution that basically says we're not supposed to be a respecter of religious ideologies. And so he became a supporter of that. Okay, I understand the Holocaust was terrible, blah, blah, blah. Lots of things were discriminated against, though. Lots of things were, there was an attempt to annihilate lots of people who were considered deficient. So again, should we create islands for the midgets, the dwarfs, and islands for, you know, the atheists. They were considered an evil also, and the homos, which are little homo islands and stuff. It's just bullshit. Well, anyway, I'm just saying it exists though, so fine. But the idea of expansion, and so you're saying, why aren't you just happy with what you have? Okay, you got your thing, you got your island. You want to take over other countries now? Yeah, well, that's bullshit. And nobody should be calling bullshit. That's bullshit. All right, it's just bullshit to think the rest of the Arab world should just be sitting back saying, "Oh yeah, you know, you're next, you're next." Yeah, but that's all it is. It's just border creep. You know, it's creepy border creep. But it's just so impractical. I mean, you know, what are you going to do? You're gonna kick 2 million people that don't want to leave out of their off their land again, and what are you going to do? You're going to give them no money? You're not even going to give them a mule and, you know, the 50 acres? What are you going to give them? You're not going to give them anything. You're going to give them a refugee camp. You know, and they're not supposed to be at all pissed off. You know, so you can create a resort that no one will ever go to, because it'd probably be the easiest, you know, the place where you're most likely to get killed on planet Earth. The whole thing is insane. And you're saying, how did we get there? That no, they don't even mention the fact that Palestinians are called Palestinians for a whole reason. Okay, that's they consider Israel their homeland. Okay, it's just a fact. And you know, people who claim they don't have any legitimate rights are just kind of bullshit. They were living there first, the fact is, and they were displaced, and that's a fact. And yeah, we displaced the North American Indians, and we genocided them pretty much, and we got away with it. So is that the strategy? Is that, well, if you can get away with it, it's okay. So I mean, I'm saying pragmatically, it exists. We should defend, okay, what already exists, but we shouldn't defend this idea that we'll just keep taking territory and expect the Arab nations not to have any reaction. And especially in the context of the religious fanaticism that it underlies this whole thing. The very thing we were supposed to be getting rid of is this idea that there's a sacred philosophy, you know, bullshit there is. Yeah, so I felt somebody needs to say something. I mean, you can't, a president of the United States who doesn't know that the Palestinians were already kicked off their land, and you would want to try to kick them off again? Oh, amazing. And they're supposed to say thank you? Oh, you know, amazingly clueless. All right. And then the tariff thing. So you know, obviously he didn't take this seriously. He says it's one of his favorite word next to God and religion. So God isn't a religion. So that's the funny part, right? He actually said that. Next to God and religion, there's tariffs. And that's what he ran on. And you're saying, how could this be somebody's favorite word? Extortion is my favorite word. What? Yeah, that's all it is. It's just extortion. And if you don't do extortion, like, all the way, then all you're doing is demonstrating incredible weakness. So all he's basically saying is look, we will lie and cheat wherever we can. So we'll write a contract, we'll make deals, and we'll break them. And that's what he's just saying to the world. So don't make an agreement with us. Don't do anything where you don't have the power to fuck us over, because we'll fuck you over if you don't have protection against it. And so it's just telling the rest of the world that, yeah, don't become dependent on us. Don't think we are an ally, because we'll fuck you anytime we want to for a few, you know, pennies. For fucking pennies. And you're saying, what is this really about? Is that, well, it's really about he's just taking advantage of a country in its own turmoil, okay? And he's just taking advantage that they're a little bit, you know, Canada's a little bit unsure of its integrity, you know, just because it's having the same kind of conflict between the right and the left. And he's just taking advantage of their weakness. And that's it. And for what reason? Who knows? I mean, he makes up this crap about some fucking fentanyl or some kind of bullshit, like somehow this is the big threat to America. Like the right wing could give a shit about assholes dying from their drug addictions. When did the right wing give a shit about any of that crap? So it's just so insincere. It's such a pile of shit. Like they cared about, they wept a whole bunch of tears because people die of heroin addiction or something. They've never wept a single tear for a heroin addict. So what a pile of crap. So the whole thing is just so fucking bizarre that I have to just say, yes, it's just so fucking bizarre. I never thought I would live to see chaos. Just chaos. Stupid chaos. Just stupidity running rampant. Just never thought it. I grew up with, Walter Cronkite, It was a really stable world compared to what's going on now. And, there's all this stupid, Egypt and Israel were in a war, all kinds of different things happened in my generation. But nothing this insipid. I mean, this is just so fucking goddamn stupid. It's just, you just marvel. That's all you can do. You can't be that dumb. He doesn't know why Palestinians are there. He thinks they just kind of randomly wandered onto the territory. Yeah, and so we can just make them randomly wander off of it. Like they're the squatters. Yeah, the Palestinians are just squatters. Ugh. Not that like I said, I got nothing. I got no empathy for Muslims, frankly. But I really don't have any empathy. I don't have any empathy with people who want to create racial states and ideological states and all that kind of horse shit. That's horse shit, frankly. Fuck that. That's that's the toilet bowl swirling down. That has no good future. So if you're going to play that game, you're going to lose big time. All right, so enough of that crap. Just amazing. It's just a point. Look, Trump is really fucking stupid. I mean, he's evil and stupid. I mean, he just has the mentality of some developer who's used to just kicking people out of their apartment and saying, it's going condo, fuck you. You've lived here 40 years, too fucking bad. Get the fuck off the property. Crazy shit. Raises a son who just goes around the world and shoots little animals. All the money in the world, well, they're really fake money, but plenty of fake money, okay? And they can't find something better to do with their goddamn time, and sit in the bushes and sabotage little critters trying to eke through their stinking, lousy, rotten existence. What scum. All right, anyway. Jesus fucking Christ. What the fuck? Anyway, what the fuck? All right, so back to the usual agenda. So again, I am working off of these. You can just use single words, but I mean, I'm just using a phrase from what I wrote, all right, and just saying, okay, you can make a whole story out of just something very simple in terms of a simple statement. And so I have a place where I wrote, I was talking about Frankenstein and using that as a metaphor. So, that Dr. Frankenstein is the asshole we got to get rid of. It's not the monster's fault. It's the guy who creates the monsters. So, convince the villagers that they will someday be their own victim, and they must let go of their blissful ignorance and take responsibility for the ugly village they are part of. So I use that as a foundation for the conversation, and there's lots of pieces to that, like the idea of what the ugly village is. You have to take responsibility for everything, not just our crappy civilization and the fact that in 2025 we have a democracy that just produces giant douche versus shit sandwich. I mean, South Park, it's a perfectly good analogy. I mean, you really just can't. It's dumber and dumber. I mean, it's so fucking bad and worse. It's just, how did it get there? How did we get there? That the worst, the lowest, the creepiest human beings run for president. How did we get there? All right. Anyway, so to the video, I think. Well, I better check the volume and such. Yeah, it should be tolerable. The agenda and, explaining how you have to make this argument, what has to be accomplished. Right, so it's the whole convince word. You could just sit there and talk about all the ways you can convince somebody. You can convince them honorably by just saying, here's the facts as I see them, blah, 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 blah. And then you can put it into some pretty story or narrative or some kind of artistic thing. Or, there's just so many ways to try to trigger the response you're trying to get out of a person, which is first listen and, find some way where it gets to some piece of them that actually can have a genuine emotion. But yeah, it sort of requires that. Again, you can't just talk to the intelligence. You also have to talk to the ape that's in all of us. The ape is the one that does the moving, and the intelligence has to drive it. And so you have to kind of get to their ape by trying to get to some part of their sense of fairness or honor or dignity, some kind of concept that they cherish, and say, look, this stuff is attacking this thing you cherish. And then they'll convert that into a banana for the ape, through their own internal rationalizations. The bigger context for my argument is the real village we live in is the natural one. Right, just that's the huge context, right? It's nature's the bloodbath. Okay, we're bad. I mean, we do lots of horrible things to each other and to the animals. But nature, I mean, it's the master of sadistic harm. And yes, it doesn't have a brain, so it can't be doing it on purpose. It's doing it because it is so goddamn dumb. So, but it's the monster maker, and it's the monstrosity producer, and that's the fact. And it has to be part of your understanding of what you are. You're not just an American or just a human. You're a sentient being on a planet covered with organisms that have been sacrificed for millions of years to produce you. And that's a hell of a thing, to impose all of that harm and think you're worth it. So you have to fix that, or you're just gluttonous, sadistic, evil shit, because you have a brain. You can know better. Nature can't. You can. So you can be called evil and sadistic and all kinds of bad words because you've earned it, because you have the capacity to know better. I mean, you haven't even you haven't given it a glimmer of fairness and recognized that reality. You didn't create it, but you're fanning the flames, so to speak. Their superstition, their ADD, their CDDW. Yeah, so you have to get through so much. You don't know who you are. I'm talking to somebody who could be a schizophrenic, and every week their bullshit changes, and and so everybody's a different person coming from a different perspective that has some other, some different golden idol that they live for. And I have to be so careful not to offend the golden idol, right? Not to say anything negative about the golden idol, because then they shut down and become defensive. Instead of recognizing that, look, just try to understand what's really valuable here is feeling things, having experiences, okay? Diamonds aren't worth anything. Gold isn't worth anything. Sunsets aren't worth anything. Feeling things are worth something. This shouldn't be a hard argument, but that's what really has to take place. Instead of thinking football is everything, they have to understand that people having a bad day is everything. They're not going to let you, tear down football, So, yeah, coincidence. Yeah, so I just can't get you into a defensive mode, so I have to be so careful about everything. You know, and I'm not going to be that careful, obviously. So, you know, it takes all the fun out of it, because you can't just make an honest argument to try to convince, because you're talking to so many different people that you have to do this lowest common denominator thing. You have to do this, well, I can't do anything. I can't swear. I can't use this. I can't do that. I can't say this. I can't say that. I mean, it's almost everything is off the table in terms of anything you can do but say, I praise Allah and David and, you know, Jeebus and, oops, I said Jeebus. You know, no, it's impossible to placate all of the blinders and all the perverse ways people look at words and experience them. Yeah. You know, that's all they're doing. Okay. And so let's see, what other category is there? Yeah. Oh, okay, so I was just going through categories of all the different ways that a person can be a challenge to communicate with. And, different kind of language, and you have to talk to them all in a different kind of way. You know, some need the tough love of, yeah, so that's, you know, so there's really no way to, you know, I keep hoping I can just make a silver bullet, you know, kill all the monsters, you know, all the bad ideas, you know, and, you know, the werewolves and the Draculas and, you know, the vampires and the Frankenstein, you know, whatever the monster is, it'll kill it. But that's a really, yeah, daydream. That's a real fantasy. But it's all you can, you know, you got to cling to some hope, and you got to cling to, well, okay, I can't do it, but I'm going to try. I'm sure there's some guy saying, you know, let's say the highest somebody's jumped is 7 feet or something. There's going to be somebody who's going to dream of jumping 8 feet. Even though it's physically impossible or something, they're still going to try. Because what else is there but trying? Thrown into a country and thrown into a set of parents. And, yes, it's not going to be you. You're not getting reincarnated. All right, so I just keep trying to, you know, this is a conversation you can't have with people because, again, they're just so stupid. Okay, so you try to explain a kind of reincarnation in the sense that everybody just shows up the way you got here. I got here this way. I know you got here this way. You just showed up. Okay, all of a sudden you're somewhere. And all of a sudden you're saying, I'm conscious, I'm aware, I feel, and you're just looking around saying, okay, how do I play the game from this place in the world? And that's your destiny, and it's going to completely control who you become, how you speak, how you do all, you know, all this stuff is going to be decided not by you, but by where you were arrived on Earth. And so you can sort of understand that you're really not going to control any of that. The future is going to be used, but they're going to be used in all kinds of different packages. They're just going to be a thing that feels and thinks. And it's going to be completely controlled by the environment it's created in and the experiences it has. And it's going to have the same ones you have in some respects. It's going to go through its maturation in some similar way, and it's going to be essentially another you. It's just the truth. You're not that unique. Okay, yeah, we're all little snowflakes. Yeah, we're all different. But we're not different enough for you to think you aren't going to be here even after you're dead, in the sense that you, the bot, the thinking machine of a particular persuasion of thinking, a certain kind of thinking, is going to be doing that same kind of thinking again and feeling. So you're going to live in the shit you create. If you fuck the future, okay, you're going to live with the herpes you gave it. Your psychological function, and that you're forever changed by the fact that you've been dipped in acid. Right, so I was just talking about, you know, this is part of it, is unfortunately some of this stuff, you know, if this is like some old man telling some kid, Oh, you don't know nothing, youngster. The world, boy, it's gonna fuck you over. Blah, blah. You can say all that shit, and the kid's gonna say, "Oh, fuck you." Shut up. Drool. Somewhere else. So, these life lessons don't mean anything until you really learn them, in terms of they hit you in the face. And then all of a sudden you realize that, oh yeah, that talk about odds and probabilities and all that. Oh yeah, maybe I should have paid a little attention in that class because I'm living it. I'm entered in 5 million shitty lotteries. And the fact is that each one of the lotteries has a 5 million to 1 odds of winning, so I have a 50-50 chance of winning one of the shitty lotteries. Just a fact. The argument, I have to admit, the one that just appeals to me is, like I said, the one that worked for me, is the empathy thing. Yeah, so, and the empathy thing, as I will explain, has nothing to do with being generous or caring. It had to do with me gaining empathy through fear, through saying, that could be me, and saying, shit, I don't want it to be me. I'm not doing that. I'm not living like that. I'm not being that. I don't want that. I don't, and it was fear. So my empathy was kind of selfish and, in the sense that I just was empathetic with anything that was having an event that I didn't personally want to experience or wouldn't experience for $1 billion or that kind of thing. Nothing is worth it. The indignity or the humiliation or the whatever happens. No way. There's nothing about this life that's good enough to risk that failure. Circumstance, you have so much in common, and that the root of you is, it's the same root. Yeah, so I'm just trying to get to the point that obviously you can think that, okay, yeah, I'm very complicated and nuanced. Well, of course we all are. I mean, after years and years and years of individual little personal experiences, you're going to be nuanced. But the idea that you're either playing rock and roll or classical or, that you fit into a broad categories. I mean, what could I break it down to? 1,000 questions you could ask? And the fact is, there's going to be somebody in the future who would answer every one of those 1,000 questions just like you did. It's going to be a person a lot like you, and you might as well understand that, yeah, okay, it doesn't matter what it looks like and all this other shit. It just matters that it has an identity that's a similar one to my own, and that it's going to be put in jeopardy. It's going to have its house fall on it in an earthquake. It's going to have all these experiences that you're pretending you're immune to, in creating some narrative that I'm going to put in a video and spew out into the world, because I really can't get to you, with that mechanism of pretending to be on your... Yeah, so I was just talking about all these different strategies, and this idea that do you really have to be a spy? Do you have to be treacherous? Do you have to be a conniver, like certain presidents? Is that all there is just the scheme? Or can it be done with some kind of dignity and integrity? I mean, do you have to be a backstabbing, lying, conniving, fake friend? Do you have to be all these things that are just insincere and fake and phony to get anywhere? And in some respects, it seems obvious you do. You have to network on YouTube, and you have to do this, and you have to do, fuck that. But, I mean, the fact is yeah, that's... unfortunately, we've created a world where winning's really hard to do without having the capacity to be a scummy shit. Strategy, because there aren't too many people that have any sense of honor and being incapable of being proud in a cheated victory. Ah, yes. So yeah, so that's just that integrity thing, dignity, whatever you want to call it. Who wants to win? That way. Tripping or throwing banana peels. You're in a race and you're throwing banana peels over your shoulder. Yeah, no, it's disgusting. But that's the world. A price without having some sort of exaggerated notion of your own value. Especially in the context of a world where, gee, I mean, that guy just, he works 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day maybe, okay? Making $5 an hour doing. So anyway, so I was just sort of talking about how, as a kid, I didn't, it was hard to price anything, because there was always somebody else working harder, doing more, and you'd say, well, I don't deserve more, than that. So it was always that kind of standard. It was always just hard to negotiate fairness in that context, and so yeah, I sort of gave up on trying to play that game, and I just figured, ironically, in sort of in the religious context, in sort of like the Jesus context of my job isn't to worry about what they're doing, my job is to worry about what I'm doing. And so I'll play a good game, and it doesn't matter if the rest of the game isn't good. But just the idea that's sort of what you're talking about. People, this isn't about stubbing your toe and, oh, isn't that horrible? This is about, gigantic defects in the game. Yeah, that's right. It's, dying of cancer when you're 7. It's really lots of very unpleasantnesses to be experienced, and lots of horror and torment and torture. And yeah, well, I stated, it's too expensive and we're not worth it. The song and dance-ing is not worth it. Obscenity in terms of the sound of the meat grinder, droning, and recognizing that you can stop all of the future. Right, so, that's getting somebody to understand is 2 + 2, equals 4. It's just really not complicated in terms of understanding the math here, that you're giving up almost nothing, just some notion of purpose and function, and it's not something that has to affect you. I mean, you can still play your game, you can still try to win your Super Bowl, you can still try to do all your things, you can live out your adventure, and all you're just saying is that, oh, well, what I'm compromising is creating a circumstance that's no worse than the absent Martians. It's no more of a holocaust than the fact that Mars doesn't have living things eating each other on it. Oh, what a horror. Oh, what a terrible thing. No. So that's hardly a terrible price to pay. Peace and quiet, so to speak. Oh, but that's a terrible thing to have happen. Peace and quiet? No, we can't have that. The horror. No, that's not the horror. The Hindenburg is the horror. Okay, the people being burned to death, that's the horror. Stop working. Alright, that's a problem. Yeah. I broke it. Alright, appears to be working again. Hopefully this video will survive. Q! So even they're voting against it, and you're saying, so it's like, okay, I can't, I can't join that. How can I join that? So again, I guess that's I was a little bit of politics or something, or just saying, there's just too many. The story, the advocacy. I think I was talking just about being an advocate for something, and then it goes, say if you realize that, okay, maybe human beings are too dysfunctional and they're going to make too much of a mess because they have too much power, and they're going to end up making nanobots, and they're going to do all kinds of things, and there's no possibility of having a reasonable future because everybody's going to be trying to give everybody coronavirus and blah blah blah. So yeah, we're doomed. Fuck it. And then the idea of sanitizing the entire planet, well, that just scares the shit out of people. So this is the as bad as the circumstance is, you can't convince them of a part of it. You have to really convince them of the whole thing, and that's that makes it just even that much more difficult. is you really have to do more than just say, you know, put up signs in your yard saying don't make Frankenstein monsters. You know, that's not going to solve the problem. Way of saying it. All right, so I'll take another break and see if we can finish up. Breaks. Yeah, breaks are good. All right, I'm for them back and such. Anyway, so was thinking, I had an opportunity to do that, and I was thinking about, you know, this is, you know, if every human being had to sell their plan of the future, you know. So I like this part. So I ended with just one of those thought experiments, blah, 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 about basically the idea of I could bribe you. So if I could really offer you a bribe, where I could give you eternal life on some life star in space where everything was beautiful and you live forever, and you didn't get diseases, and you didn't, you know, we cured everything, and you lived with a bunch of synthetic nature, you know. It did the same thing as real nature, except none of it felt anything. So little robot lizards and little robot things could be fluffing around and making you feel like you're part of your living community and all that kind of crap. But it's all synthesized and clean. And then even you could go the step further and create the Matrix, where you can do, you know, you could grow wings and fly if you wanted to. But regardless, you know, the whole idea is I could bribe you out of your notion that the earth needs to have animals eating each other on it. And I know I could, if I could actually produce, you know, this slut, you know, to offer you the slut, you know, or whatever, the virgin, you know. So I could offer you candy that will corrupt you. And I know it. I know it's true, and I think you know it's true. And that's what makes this even more irritating, is that you know you could be bribed out of your sacred love for your football if I just offer you enough sluts. You know, virgins. Earth ones and everything, all the, you know, keep all the crap that you think is necessary, that all has to be included. And you just don't have billions and billions. Right, so it would be a limited population of eternal livers. See, and I could live with that as a compromise. So, you know, if it's just idiots living forever because they choose to in a synthetic world of bullshit, playing football or doing whatever they're doing, I could live with that. Because, you know, there's not this trillions or zillions of animals being tormented and tortured for it. So that would be a very good bargain from my perspective. I'll accept that. And I really think that's something you could seduce people into. But I have to be able to prove that's going to be the future before I can get you to believe. You know, and I have to make it so you can be part of it. So I have to make it happen soon enough for it to be part of where you get to be a member, you know, of the Life Star. A Life Starian thing. Yeah, you keep doing that. You know, you can keep screwing your neighbors. Yeah, so all the debauchery, you can have it all. Because it doesn't matter, right? You can rape, you can do pillage. It doesn't matter because it's all synthetic stuff you're raping and pillaging. So, yeah. Yeah, I think I can seduce anybody if I allow them to be a real asshole. Give them a perfect world to be a real asshole in. And they'll buy it. Because it really just is about their ambitions. It's about their silly story and them thinking, well, I just need to rape one more woman and I'll be happy. Just one more. No, it's always one more. It was just overtly pleasurable for me to be useful. Then I went into, you know, again, I have this I ended up here sort of, you could see it in just how I was, you know, how I maturated, in the sense I had no choice but to be a do-gooder. It seemed the only way you could do anything to gain any points in your existence, any way to defend your existence, you had to do something to make the liability of your existence worth it. You know. And so, you know, I knew I was I didn't have great utility in obvious, you know, social ways. I guess. But I knew I had utility in ways where, well, if you need something fixed, or there's a lizard in the house, I can catch it. I could do things that made me useful, and that was my candy. System. Alright, so I'm still just doing that. That's all. I'm still in the same mode of the only way I can gain anything in terms of my own self-esteem is to be devoted or motivated to do this do-gooder thing. And I can't get any more do-gooder than this. But again, I'm going to argue it's all very selfish, because frankly, I know the fact is I'm going to be tormented in the future. So I know if I don't do something to stop it here and now, it's going to happen then and there. And I don't want that to keep happening. I don't want to keep coming back here to be ground up and spit out, so to speak. I don't. No mas. Had my fill. So I am being selfish. Alright, so that's probably enough. And such, and so forth and whatnot. So I don't think there's... Well, I can pause and to see if there's anything else I need to say. Maybe just see, these words, it just really is annoying that I just can't grab the words as quickly as I used to be able to. Upkeep. Yeah, see, my brain is saying, no, that's not what you want to say. It's the, it's right in front of me. It's just the concept is sitting right in front of me, and I can't find the words to describe the simple maintenance. Okay, yeah, maintenance. Well, that's good enough. It's not really what I was looking for. So when a couple of years ago, a guy was going to do this update on the website, and he was create all this infrastructure, and I'd be able to upload videos and do all this, and it was just 2 years of all this stuff, and nothing ever got, he was doing some grand big thing, and I just wanted some little thing, and so nothing got done. So it was 2 years of just waiting for the thing to happen, and it never happened. So anyway, in the past, people have said they wanted, they wouldn't mind doing some website fiddling. And so if you're still interested, just email me. And, I don't mind having varieties or different versions of the websites. So if there's some better way you think it's better ways for it to be displayed. The SSL thing I can't do much with. So I did find out that when I have an old tablet, running like Blueberry or whatever, 4.4. So, and when you use the old browser, it says the certificate isn't any good. So it won't even display the website. And then even in Google, it says, oh, this is a suspect website, blah, blah, and you have to hit the OK button. So even though it has an SSL certificate, somehow it's not good enough. So, I mean, they really do, I guess, force you to pay for one, which is really irritating. So anyway, that's the one of them's DreamHost, and the other one's on GoDaddy. And they both fail. And one of them I got a free certificate for, and the other one they provide the certificate, and they're both not good enough, apparently. Which is the whole thing is just such bullshit. I mean, this whole fake security crap they're doing is really, I mean, all they're trying to do is get your cell phone number, obviously, and it's all just fake, and it's really annoying. I don't know why everybody's falling into this crap. Why do these browsers think I got some gigantic threat? It really doesn't exist. Encrypting a website does not make anything more secure as long as the website isn't asking for your credit card. And if you already don't know not to give your credit card to a website that isn't secure, that's all they should do. They should just put a banner up that say, this site you put your credit card into, or some private information. And just say this site you can't. Big, you know, what's the big deal? I'm not asking for your credit card. I'm not asking you to do a damn thing. I'm not asking you to tell me your life story. I'm not publishing anything that's needs protecting. I don't need to protect any content, and I'm not going to do anything to. I'm not going to take anything from you. So it's just such bullshit. It's all part of the bullshit. All just layers of extra expense and nonsense. You know, it just shouldn't exist. And it just exists because they make an industry out of it. This is just as bad as the old days when, you know, well, I don't, you know, maybe they still have it, you know, where you, you know, you have a company that protects you from viruses, and what it really does, you know, is give you viruses, you know, and then get rid of them for you. You know, just absolute bullshit. All right, so till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot. Yeah, it really is enough. Okay. Yeah, it's enough.